Hello believers, and welcome to the show. This is a podcast where we speak to creative folk about what goes on in their minds and how the greatest TV show of the 90s has affected that. You join me in a sewer, deep below the surface. Stinks down here. Stinks to high heaven. Chock full of discarded human detritus too, but the less said about the outgoing government the better. Brave new world though now, isn't it? So let's see how these new folks get on. Good luck America too, with your own personal struggle. Anyway, the only politics I'm interested in talking about today is discussions of municipal work systems and drainage. And joining me in the sewer is a journalist and Guardian fashion editor, Morwenna Ferrier. Let's hope she's dressed for the occasion. Morwenna has written on travel, fashion and lifestyle for Grazia, Metro, Daily Telegraph, The Times, and now The Guardian, amongst others. She's also written a book about Lil Wayne, the rapper. Didn't get to talk about that enough. In today's chat, Morwenna talks about her training as a journalist, being motivated by revenge, the heady world of fashion, Scully's outfits, repeatedly scaring herself with horror films, rediscovering the OC, and The X-Files Season 2, Episode 2, The Host, in which Mulder and Scully investigate a body found in a sewage works, which leads to the discovery of a bizarre, fluke-like worm man. Bloody good episode, I have to say. Great to speak to Morwenna in a bit more detail than the WhatsApp group that we're both part of. That entails sending each other memes from the film Aliens. Lots of fun, but, we get into a bit more nitty-gritty here about her life and work. As always, if you like our show, please do leave me a message, subscribe and review, and follow us on X, Instagram and YouTube. In the meantime, please do remember to wash your hands, and here's Morwenna. I mean, how are you in yourself? How are you getting on at the minute?
Well, right now, I mean, I'm 3 months into being a mother. Because I'm not working. I have one job, which is to keep the baby alive. So that means I'm quite relaxed and happy. Much sort of, and actually, even though I'm incredibly sleep deprived, I'm much more rested than I am when I'm working. So I feel fine. I feel good. I feel quite kind of buzzy, and the days sort of open up before me, and I don't really know what I'm doing each day, but I quite sort of like that. But I feel fine. I think I'm still buzzing off the hormones as well,
right? Yeah.
And also ask me again in 3 months and I'll probably be on my knees, but yeah, I feel good. I
mean, how has it differed this time to Ivan, your first child? Have you noticed any difference in how you're approaching things? Do you feel more confident, keeping the child alive, for want of a better word?
I think the irony is, I think Ivan was quite an easy baby, which we didn't really realise at the time.
Right.
And he sort of, he slept kind of, I don't know, so, but you could put him down, which I didn't realise was not normal, that you couldn't just put a baby down. Like with Billy, we can't just put him down. So he's much more plugged into the world. I think he's more, Billy is more, I don't want to apologise too much at 3 months, but I think he's more aware of the world and aware of himself and the world, and also I think he knows what he wants, which might sound a bit strange to sort of, because he obviously can't communicate that, but he seems to, when he wants to, he lets you know, whereas Ivan was much more, I don't know, he kind of went along with things a lot more. So I think Billy's a harder baby, more difficult, more demanding. But I feel, because I sort of feel like I know. I don't know what I'm doing. None of us know what we're doing. But I feel, because I sort of vaguely know what I'm doing. I don't think I'm gonna. I've got that thing where I don't really think I'm destroying him every time I kind of give him a dummy or something.
Right.
So I think it's kind of, I'm passing that on to him. Yeah. I mean, completely weird.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? It's it's something that babies being born every day, but it is a very strange thing when you think about it. Are you finding time for yourself in that then? And if so, how do you relax, or how do you switch off when you're not cradling the baby if you're not holding him 24/7?
I mean, I don't. I mean, to be honest, I don't have that much time for myself now because my boyfriend's working, so I'm kind of. But I'm doing. I sort of when he's sort of napping, I do sort of the odd bit of yoga, and I started running actually, which is a new thing for me.
Oh right.
I know. So I'm actually doing couch to 5K, but because it turns out I'm incredibly competitive in sport and exercise, which I didn't really realise. But I had to start at week 4 because I couldn't bear to start at the beginning. So now I'm on to week 7, and I don't think it's. I think it's because I feel like I'm relatively a bit fitter than some people. I think just because I am a walker or whatever. But it's funny how it's kind of really brought out this sort of repressed competitiveness in me on the field, which I kind of had buried for the last year, having not done any sort of sport.
Yeah, I mean, is that so? Who's that competitive with then? Is that with other runners or with yourself? Just myself. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was saying this to my boyfriend yesterday. I always think it's the. I think I competition in sport is seen as kind of a good thing, but when you're doing kind of exercise like that, it's kind of completely useless in a way because you are just like you're only hurting yourself. And I've done something to my ankle probably because I've been too competitive with myself, and so I'm having to have a little break, which is very annoying. But I think maybe it's good for me to have a bit of something to rub up against, and not in a weird way. But I'm really enjoying running, which I never thought I would enjoy. I'm more of a team sport person.
Do you get? Is it the kind of endorphin rush then? And do you notice? I mean, because I've said this on a podcast before, but I really notice about 20 minutes into a run. Oh yeah, running for 20 minutes. Don't like to show off, but I really notice that a kind of switch in the brain and the body where the body turns into like a machine. When it's running on, it's like ticking over, and I really get a lot out of that. I really feel like it makes me feel great for the rest of the day. I mean, do you notice that when you're running, or is it sort of afterwards when you feel like you've achieved something?
I'm not running as far as you do. So I probably I don't really get to the point, that kind of wall where you go through this wall and then you kind of feel good. But I do feel good afterwards. But I've noticed it's more after that I just feel like I've achieved something. And also where I live is beautiful and it's very open and green. And when we've had this very cold weather, it's kind of amazing running on very hard frozen ground. And I find it very mood boosting. And that's something, again, I didn't really understand about running. I didn't really understand the mood boosting aspect of it. And I think it's I can see how addictive it can be, and I'm quite excited about the fact that I'm going to get addicted to this than say smoking like I used to be.
Are you would you say you're that sort of person who would when they pick something up they go all in with it, and it's like you're already thinking, right, that when I run the marathon, not if, or planning out sort of various key runs. Is that how you tend to approach life anyway? If you're doing something, that's your thing that you're doing.
Well, I mean, most of us are like this, I suppose. That I only like doing things that I'm good at. If I'm not very good at it, then
fair.
I don't. I lose interest quite quickly, sort of like maths or something. But with no, I don't. I think I kind of chronically underestimate myself. So I actually don't really have any major life goals. I never really have, because I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. But what I do instead is I sort of basically decide I'm going to do something, tell some people, and then put myself in a position of impossibility where I have to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to embarrass myself and let everybody down. And it's almost like, and that's the only way I can do it. And it's almost like I hear the words coming out of my mouth. I'm like, I have no intention of doing that. But then if I say it, then I have to do it. And it's almost like it's almost like an invisible force pushing me along. Otherwise, I don't think I can do it. I think I'm kind of crap at a lot of things. And I long for guidance from figures of authority. That's what I sort of live for. And so in order to it's almost like I kind of got out of myself. I create this goal that I don't think I can do. And then I just have to see it through.
I really like that. Yeah. I mean, did that extend to sort of writing then? Have you always been good at writing? Is it something where you've just felt a natural competency at writing, and then that sort of fed into you feeling, an excitement about writing? And I guess to follow on from that, at what point did you think I could do this as a career?
I think it was more that I had a sort of imagination, and I would go into my own world. I think I don't know if writing was something I did when I was little. Like I was quite good at spelling. I was quite unhappy at school, and the only thing that kind of made me that got me through it was just by applying myself. And so it was like a happy place, because I would sort of sit in the library and just work, and it would be like reading like secondary texts or completely unnecessary when you're like 9. But I would read. I would work because I felt that was something that I could do. And I guess we all have to write when we're little, and that's something, that kind of goes hand in hand with it. But it was more that I had an imagination, and I didn't really. I knew then I think I loved English. I loved reading books. I would sort of like read a lot when I was little, and I think what happened to me is I knew I wanted to write in some capacity. I didn't really know what journalism was. We didn't grow up in a particularly sort of political household. I went to university not knowing the difference between left and right wing. But I knew I wanted to write, and then my sort of Damascene moment was when I was about 12, 11 or 12. We went to go and stay with my father and stepmother, and I think they just said, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I think I said, my sister said she wanted to be a vet, and I said I wanted to be a journalist, and I just plucked it from somewhere. And my stepmother said, "I don't think you'll ever be a journalist. You're not confident enough, and you're not outgoing enough." And that, for me, so basically I became a journalist to exact revenge on my stepmother. And I thought, I have to do this to prove her wrong. And I don't see her very much now, but every time I do, there's a part of me which feels this joy that I proved her wrong, and became a journalist. And I don't think, true that I've had to, the confidence thing has been something that I've struggled with, particularly because I used to have, I think the hard thing for me was I mumble quite a lot, as you can probably tell. I've had to learn to speak clearly, but I used to have a bit of a stutter. And I think the sort of thing that helped me at the beginning was when I was doing kind of work experience at various places, is that I had the stutter, and my editor used to send me off to do interviews with people because they tend to take pity on young girls with stutters. And so I kind of made a career out of interviewing my first ever interview was Bob Hoskins. And I was like 21 and then, terrified in a hotel room, but I was stuttering away. And I think he just felt bad, and so just gave me everything, like just gave me his life story. So I came back with this kind of perfect interview, because he felt sorry for me, I think. And then, so anyway, but the writing thing is something that, I think then I realized, I liked writing a lot, and it came quite naturally to me. And it is completely mad that I am able to write for a living, and I'm paid to write. But it's sort of journalistic writing is kind of its own thing anyway. It's a very weird type of writing and a very weird way to work.
I'm glad you brought up that story about your stepmom, because I'd heard that and I was going to raise it, and I think that's horrible, obviously, but such a like pivotal moment. It's such an odd thing to say to a child, and I don't wonder if it's obviously key to, it's specific to that person, but I think it's a generational thing as well.
But I'm lucky that I managed to kind of like turn it into something, because I didn't know I had that in me, and it turns out I'm motivated by revenge quite a lot.
John Wick of writing,
and it's true. Yeah, basically I have John Wick taken, but I am and I think it's been a great motivator for me, and I remember it. And I think it is obviously it's incredibly dangerous, but I think it probably tells you that I probably did actually I really probably did want to be a writer in some capacity anyway, and I was going to make it happen no matter what. And
obviously you're fashion editor of The Guardian now. Is that, at what point did you get sort of drawn to fashion? And it's a sort of world that, I don't know, I sort of just having worked in the film industry, I kind of come across obviously films about fashion, and work with the costume designers sometimes, and stylists. But so it's almost it seems like a world that's ripe for satire. But I mean, have you always been drawn to clothes, how people look, how people dress, and at what point?
No, really not. Really not. I fell into it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally fell into it. I think it's kind of embarrassing. My first thing, I wanted to be a travel writer, like we all do, obviously, because we want to travel the world. And I did a bit of that, and then I got into food writing, and then I did more general features, and then fashion. It's still. I think what happened is I wanted to be a journalist, and I worked at various places, including, so I started at The Observer, but I was doing kind of like random stuff there, I mean, mostly making tea, but just all sorts of stuff, and being paid kind of an illegal amount of money. And then I realised that there aren't many people who can write about fashion. The two weirdly don't go hand in hand always. And I realised, well, like I think it was a confidence thing. I thought, well, this is probably a job that if I can get this right, then if I can make money as a freelance writer, then writing about fashion, there's probably some work out there.
Yeah.
And I didn't really care about fashion. I didn't really know anything about it. I mean, basically 3 is a trend with most things, and it's the same is true in fashion. It was basically a way in to make money because newspapers and magazines always wanted fashion copy.
Yeah.
And then I got offered. Then I ended up getting offered a job. I left, went to various newspapers, left The Observer, went to the Telegraph and Grazia and all sorts of weird places, and then I came back to The Guardian. I got offered a job as an online fashion editor,
right?
And I still don't really know why, but it sounds really odd, and because people in fashion, they really want to work in fashion, and fashion editors are like they just want to do it more than anything. And I think maybe there was a kind of reluctance to me which appealed to them. I didn't really have an ego. I didn't want to become the next Anna Wintour, so which is quite nice for other fashion editors, because then you're not really kind of a threat to them. But I think the thing about, what I will say is I wouldn't really want to do this job at any other newspaper, because I think the way that the Guardian treats it is a very specific. It's quite, you can't take it seriously. It's just clothes.
I see.
And it's obviously a big money machine, and one of the things is that I buy a lot of secondhand clothes. I don't really follow trends, and I think they quite like that, and I think that's kind of why I ended up becoming fashion editor, because I'm kind of anti-fashion in a sense,
right?
But I think the thing about, we live, but at the end of the day is I think I'm a better job title for me would be like a stuff editor. I think it's it's late capitalism. Late capitalism is about stuff and what it tells you about the world, and clothes is just one of those things because we all wear them, and that's kind of the way I come at it. It's like sport or art or design, anything like that, where it's a part of life. It's a part of the capitalist system, and we try and investigate that basically. And also, it can be quite entertaining, and as long as you don't take it too seriously, you can treat it as art, or you can treat it as entertainment, or you can treat it as part of the economy, or you can treat it as human stories. And I think that's the thing about fashion is it's a myriad ways of kind of exploring it.
Yeah. But
what I will say is I have to go to all the fashion weeks, and having I went to Cannes Festival last summer to go to a fashion show, and I was quite curious to see what that was like, and it feels quite similar to Fashion Week in that it is, like Devil Wears Prada, Pret-a-Porter, that they are like, they're just tips of the iceberg. It is far more horrendous and awful in so many ways than you could possibly imagine. Like the stuff I've seen, you wouldn't believe. I've seen stuff you wouldn't believe. I've seen a fashion editor. One thing I saw once I was backstage at a show, and I saw a fashion editor. She tripped over on a kind of slippery thing. She turned out to ripped her ligaments in her ankle. But I stopped to help her, but the people were just stepping over her to get to their seats at the fashion show. And I kind of picked her up, and then and I put her on a bench, and we got some ice for her ankle, and she was screaming in pain. She ended up getting helicoptered out. And then I went into the fashion show, and someone had stolen my seat because I was helping the woman.
Wow! And
that's just pretty normal. That's pretty normal behaviour at fashion.
Absolutely ruthless.
So you have to keep it is like pinch of salt. You have to kind of keep it's important to keep one foot in and one foot out of this, because I think you could probably lose your mind if you started to believe it was a real thing.
Yeah. When you say not many people could really write about fashion, do you mean that in terms of being objective about it and seeing that it is inherently a bit ridiculous?
Yeah, I mean that's basically what I mean. I think it's like, but I think also,
Yeah.
I think if you study fashion, you can do fashion journalism, but it's a very distracting business, and I think it's I think having the one foot out is key, because you can't, otherwise how can you possibly write about it? I think it's probably one of the industries where people would tend to drink the Kool-Aid and that's that, and then you can't, how can you possibly sort of be a journalist anymore?
Yeah.
And I think I think that's it. You have to, in order to write about it objectively, you have to kind of be able to question it and question the system. And there obviously, I'm not saying there's nobody does this. There's obviously loads of brilliant, much better fashion journalists than me and editors who have got, who also kind of probably dress better than me and don't just buy the stuff on eBay. But they, I think it's very hard to do, and that's effectively how I got into it as a young person, was by keeping one foot in and one foot out.
Yeah.
But I find it fascinating. I mean, we all have to wear clothes, and
Yeah.
and what we wear says something about whether we like it or not. It says something about who we are. And I think also in terms of revenge, I think going back to that, I think there's a snobbery around fashion journalism, which I used to have, and the more I do it, the harder it is. I've realised it is to do. Everyone thinks they can write about clothes, and they can't. You can't. I can't. It's and I quite enjoy, people realising that it is harder than it looks.
And I know you said that you don't, you never really had a kind of plan or anything like that. But do you feel that you're being, is there any sort of pressure from The Guardian to be, because I mean, I look at your writing and I think, I'm trying not to use the word groomed, but I'm going to say I feel like The Guardian's grooming you for like big things, like, to be a sort of one of their top columnists, and just in terms of you writing more personal kind of writing at the minute, and the kind of the range of writing that you do. But does that come from you and you wanted to write things, or I mean, how does it work in the kind of Guardian editorial office? Do they say, does someone, when do you want to write something on this? We think you'd be good at this, or just be interested to hear sort of how it works, behind closed doors.
Yeah, I think it's probably comes from both sides. I think, I mean, not to be too cynical, but they, you have to tick boxes. So if they're going to if they want a bunch of like first person confessional pieces, say, I don't know, they did this piece, they did this kind of series on like my pet. I can't remember what it's called now, but it's about a pet in your life that's changed your life, and they need the kind of the right mix. So they need men, women, young, old, and so often with us, we just get asked as a woman, like, I'm not young anymore, but as when I was in my 30s, they would say, can you just write? Have you got anything to say about this?
Yeah.
And you can say no. I tend to say yes, and then find something. Like I said, like I will say yes something, and then figure out what that is actually going to be.
Right.
And I think, but I think since COVID, we've all gone back into the office, and it's very, and because I work between the magazine, I work between G2, which is the feature section. I work in different parts. I kind of move around. We'll sit there talking about something, there'll be like a sort of thematic issue or something, and has anybody got any stories? And I'll say, well, I've got this story, and they'll say, can you write about it? So it's sort of, it comes both ways. I think for me, I'm enjoying. It turns out, I think I've lost a bit of love for the knocking out news pieces in 23 minutes.
Right.
Weirdly.
Is that a thing then? It's like, you've got 23 minutes, go.
Oh yeah. I mean, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, basically it's like, it's well, with like these fashion reports, so I doubt you've read these, but you're often sitting in a car on your phone writing something, and it's you get car sick, and you're maybe a bit drunk, someone's giving you champagne, and so you knock out kind of like 600 words in about 20 minutes. Shortcuts, which is shorter features, that would be, you'd have to file that on by about midday, and we'd have a meeting about it about 10 a.m. So
Right.
often that means putting in calls, getting the copy turned around 800 words in about an hour. And with me, I need that. I actually need horrible deadlines, and I often will start writing about 45 minutes before it's due.
Oh, interesting.
I'll be twatting about, getting a cup of tea beforehand, and it's almost, I don't know what it is about me. I need to just approach this as my therapist, but why I am compelled to leave things to the last minute and then frantically knock it out.
Yeah.
And I often think with articles you read, and I really think The Guardian should do something, which the New York Times does, which would they say, so-and-so has had 3 months of interviews with this person in order to prepare for this piece. And I think at the top of The Guardian, they should say, this piece was written in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
This piece was written in like
definitely,
20 years.
you know.
Because I'm like, when I see things sitting to get side by side on my page, I'm just like, I wrote that. I had to write that. Like, if someone dies particularly, then you've got to get it out quick. I've also found it a lot easier to write these memoir pieces. And I think I'm enjoying doing it, to be honest. And I think that in terms of like, I don't think agreeing. I think my time has passed. I think I peaked there. I think in my sort of early 30s, I think that was my time when I was kind of getting cover stories and stuff. And I think I'm on a decline now.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think I'm old hat.
Yeah.
But they have. But you're right. I mean, they do like there's definitely like a personal brand side to it. But they love a big old byline picture on, and they stick us up and they say in a little bio at the top of who we are.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's quite weird when you think about it. It's all I've ever known, that, which is funny. But it is quite weird when you think. You write something and then 300,000 people see it and they see your big photo of you and then you're walking around.
Yeah.
And it is very weird. Like,
do you get recognised a lot then? Do you get people coming up and asking you advice about how to get into writing?
I get people, it's more my name, I think. It's because I've got a weird name. So I think people are like, oh, you wrote this piece. And I don't think, also my byline picture is pretty old. So I don't think I look like that anymore. But I get it's more my name, I think, than people sort of saying who, like, as in they'll have heard my name. It's a weird name, and they'll tend to, it depends where you live as well. I'm in quite Guardian territory at the moment, so people sort of maybe know who I am, but only because of that. But a good friend of mine is Eva Wiseman, and you go to the pub with her, and she just gets like a celebrity at a bar. She just gets a circle of girls around her.
Right.
And she can't go out for drinks and get on the tube without people sort of stopping her, which must be exhausting because she's quite a weird and shy person.
Interesting, yeah.
But,
and is it? Yeah. I know you wrote. Well, we're gonna have to mention Little Wayne, the book about Little Wayne.
Hopeless.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. We've still got it on our shelf. But are you? I know. Well, I'd heard on the grapevine that you're interested in writing, a book, a novel. And is that something that you're still thinking about doing? And how would I'm just thinking about your deadlines, and how you would approach that, or is that something that's been percolating for a while?
Nightmare, absolute nightmare. That I don't know. I mean, yes, I am. It terrifies me. Yeah, I think I've got a couple of ideas for a book, and they're different. And one thing that's just great about having a sort of platform to write on at Guardian is that you can. Some people will write a piece and then they'll get a book deal out of it. It hasn't happened to me yet, which is kind of embarrassing. But some people will write a piece and then an agent will approach them. You get agents will approach you. I've had a couple of agents approach me but they want to write about crafts or something, and I'm just like that. I don't really think I can do it.
Yeah.
I have written a piece which I actually filed the day after I gave birth. I don't know why I did that, but anyway, deadlines. There you go. So I basically was filing it in hospital, and I'm sort of hoping. I want to see how that lands, and then see if that could then become a book, a novel. It's actually a sort of memoir piece, a confessional piece.
Right.
Not professional. It's just a first person piece about a sort of a bad therapist that I saw, and I think that, and I'm hoping that might become something bigger. As it happens, I I've been writing a bit once since I've been on leave. I'm quite tired, so it's quite hard. But I've actually applied for a couple of courses.
Oh, right. Great.
Because I think it's. I mean, like I said, it's like the journalism writing is very specific, and it's completely different to writing, creative writing, and I got onto one course, quite an expensive course, which I can't afford, and I think I wanted to see if I would get accepted onto it.
I see.
I then turned it down because I can't afford it, but that gave me the initial confidence to kind of then apply for other courses that don't cost as much money.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that I will then, because I think it's the workshop element I think is useful, and I would like to go and do something where I'm not known as a journalist, where I'm just kind of, I'm nobody. I'm just trying to do what you're trying to do and see if I can actually make it work, because I could be really, really bad. I don't know. And I think, but I think I'm hoping that if it does go anywhere, the deadline, because you have this, if it ever comes to this, if you get an advance, and I'm hoping that would then become the kind of the sort of guillotine deadline thing that I need. I have to get the money back otherwise.
Oh, fantastic.
But it's a good question. I don't know how I would cope with that, but here's hoping.
Yeah, no, that's well, I'm interested to hear how that takes shape. Exciting. You mentioned your being in therapy a bit there. Is that a new thing for you, or have you been seeing someone to speak to for a while? And how do you feel about that?
It's funny. I think because this piece I've written about the therapist, it's interesting because I've had to kind of think back about my life in therapy. And the first therapist I saw when I was eight, and that was at school, and I got made to do it.
Right. And
I've basically been in and out of therapy since I was 8. They're all like different types, like kind of CBT. That was was a counsellor at school. Then I sort of CBT, a bit of Jungian, a bit of Freudian. I've had good therapists and bad therapists, and now I'm with quite a serious therapist. And I think I'm very open to it. It helps that my partner is also in therapy,
right? And
so we actually do talk about it quite a lot, but it's second nature to me now, and I think I feel like it's as much a social imperative as it is anything else, and I think I hope for the greater good. I'm doing it for the greater good, just not just for me, so that I just to stop being so awful in some ways and stop being so difficult, but also I've seen it. I've definitely been in and out depending on what's going on in my life. And I know people who say they don't need therapists, which basically suggests that they do need therapists to say something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't. I mean, it's the problem. The problem is it is an expense, but it's sort of something that I've kind of wrapped into my sort of daily budget, and I'll sooner give up like a haircut than seeing my therapist.
The Irish, isn't it? That's a stereotype of the Irish, is they're immune to psychotherapy. And I'm not
right, yeah. I think it's a fun. It still seems a bit strange here in the UK. I think I don't know why. I mean, partly because of the expense, but I just sort of think you're paying someone to listen to you, and there's sort of a weird transactional side to that. But it's incredibly helpful, and I always kind of, and you form these kind of very weird relationships with a therapist. And I see a woman now, which has been quite strange because I started seeing her. It's been about five years since I've seen her. But I was when my mother was sick and dying. I spoke to her quite a lot, and they take on this kind of. It's not a counter-transference, but I suppose it is a counter-transference and transference, so it goes both ways. And they she kind of took on a kind of slightly maternal role with me, and I which is why I'm kind of slightly loath to give it up. And in fact, I do it on Zoom because she left London,
right? And
the last time I saw her, I remember I was just crying, and it was really embarrassing. I was like, I don't know, why am I crying? And it was because there was another kind of mother figure leaving me. So the part of me does keep going with her because I don't think I could cope with another loss like that. And but apart from that, I've always seen men, which is quite weird, which has basically not just backfired as the piece that I'm writing will
Yeah.
expose.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think there is still a bit of a stigma about it in the UK. And
Do you see therapy?
I haven't actually, but I have been. A lot of my friends do and really get a lot out of it. So I think this podcast's probably my therapy now, and just listening to how other people are navigating their life.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe there's an element of like stereotypical English thing of stoicism where it's like, stiff upper lip, let's just carry on, and that maybe that's carried over a bit, but I don't know. It's not definitely not healthy. So maybe I will.
It's got a bit trendy, this stoicism, hasn't it? It was a bit of a buzzword.
Was it? Yeah.
Follow the Stoics. Let's be like Cicero. And it was like, it's like, I mean, there's just such a huge gulf between stoicism and being English.
Yeah.
I find stoicism very, like, I don't know. I think I said to a therapist once, I was like, maybe I'm the Stoic, and he's like, you are not the Stoic. And I was like, okay. I was just playing around with the idea, but let's he's like, you're in therapy, you're not a Stoic, and I was like, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm not a Stoic at all. I mean, I think it's made me. It's been invaluable, I think, in terms of my relationships, in terms of being a mother. My sibling relationship has been huge, and in terms of getting over sort of grieving, it's been very important. But I mostly talk about work now,
right,
which is very boring, very, very boring, and it's just about kind of how much my self-worth is wrapped up in work, and how I am so afraid of failure and of doing anything wrong in work that it's become kind of this kind of huge albatross on my neck. So I'm trying to sort of detach myself. I think in some ways I was afraid to. I thought I would basically work very hard, then I would have a baby and work less hard, and that's always been my plan. Which is why I left being a mother quite late. But there's definitely a part of me becoming a mother for the second time, which I wasn't sure about if I was going to do it, and. But a part of it was because I needed a break from work, which sounds really odd and a bit weird, and it's not the whole thing, obviously, but it was the only way I could extricate myself from the system. Was by getting
machinery
pregnant.
of it.
So, and here I am, and I'm so quite happy as a result.
Yeah, I think again, it's an issue with the English is our approach to motherhood. And I don't know. Again, I just my window into the world is films and TV media, but I look to the French, and I think the French have got it sorted, haven't they? It's like it's not. You don't become the baby when you have a baby. You the baby comes with you, and I just these incredible, women in the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s who would just like power on, and the kids just. That extends to how you raise your kids, I think. I don't know. Go and live in France if you want to, Chris, if you like it so much. But yeah, I think there's something to that. Anyway, fantastic.
No, it's funny. A friend of mine. There's a school we looked at in South London where we were going to move there, and it turned out it was a school that Motherland was based on.
Oh right.
Because the woman who wrote it set her kids there, and I was like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. But it's. I mean, it is Motherland around here where I live now. It's super, super. Family,
is that sort of East London? Is it?
Yeah, I live in Forest Gate, so it's sort of it's near off Wanstead Flats. It's kind of up and coming, and it's like 90. It's like it's 50% sort of locals who've lived there forever, and 50% awful white gentrifiers.
Yeah, there's no escape.
And no escape, awful. But it's not Walthamstow,
right? Thank you very much for watching this episode. This is season 2, episode 2, The Host. And I mean, what's your kind of relationship with the X-Files like? Do you used to watch it growing up, and are you aware of it culturally? Do you still watch it, or have you totally compartmentalised that as the 90s in your brain?
I did actually. It's funny. I was I used to watch it. I like as you know about me, I like to watch things that scare me, and I'm always. That kind of where that dial is sort of moves around a bit. Now it's like dead babies. That's what scares me. But But when I was growing up, I would like to watch horror films and scary things, and Exiles was definitely one of them. And in fact, I mentioned to you my favourite episode before, which is two of them, Squeeze and Tombs.
Yeah.
It's I wanted to see if it would still scare me. And I remember watching that, and that's obviously quite early on in series 1, and with that guy, Doug.
Doug Hutchinson, yeah.
And what I realised was when I was thinking about Exiles again, I'll get to the episode I did watch, but is that I when I was little, I used to have a fear of elongated limbs.
Oh, right.
Which was a combination of War of the World and the long legs, kind of the idea of something being up at the top of your window, that kind of high, and also Tombs, who with his fingers. And when I was little, I used to lie under my bed and put my legs up on the top of the under the mattress to scare myself, because my legs look longer from that angle. And the elongated limb thing has stayed with me, and I wanted to stay. And it's still terrifying. Yeah, that episode, and it's still, you know. Anyway, so I would dip in and out of it. I didn't watch it like religiously, but I used to watch it in order to scare myself, and you know.
This is my pop psychology moment of the podcast. Is the fact that you work in fashion and there's a lot of long legs in fashion, you kind of facing your fear?
It's actually weird. Actually, when I was like particularly male modelling, because they are weird looking people. Right, and I remember seeing the legs and being like, oh my God, this is actually quite terrifying. It's got alien people. Because they do look like weird people. It must be so hard to be a model. It's so hard, boo-hoo. Because they look like spiders, you know. Yeah. Glossy spiders.
And is it I mean, what is it about like horror and then stuff that scares you? Is it like feeling sort of an escapism from yourself watching it because you feel out of control, you don't know what's going to happen, or is there something else there that you're kind of drawn to?
I wanted to ask you about this because I don't really know what it is, and I don't know why. It's like I find it comforting. I think I find it comforting, but I think I'm also interested by the idea of creating something on the screen that is so frightening. Yeah. That it can kind of go beyond the kind of 2 hours slot. I find I wanted like that goes like it breaks parameters, and there are things that and different genres of horror and what people find frightening or people don't find frightening. Like gore doesn't seem to really bother me. And you go through different phases of, I don't know, stigmata was a thing. I think the thing that was like I went through a phase of that probably because I went to Catholic school when I was little, and you know, I think the most terrifying the most terrifying film, I think, for me, like there's films like Jaws and Candyman, which I absolutely love, which are my top 5 films of all time, and they're terrifying, but in a very specific way. I remember watching Paranormal Activity. I went to a press screening of it.
Oh yeah.
Not really knowing what it was. I hadn't seen Blair Witch. I hadn't seen any of these. I hadn't seen any of those films, so I didn't really know what the found footage thing was. Right. And I was late for the press screening, and it was in the Odeon in Leicester Square, and it was like a summer evening, so it was light outside. All the kind of everything about it was very it jarred with the film, and I was in the front row because it was only seats left, so in this big screen. And I remember halfway. You've seen it, obviously. Yeah. And I remember like the bit when they pull the duvet back and her leg slides out. And I remember just this, and when I get scared, I cry. So it's not, I don't cry, boo, I just start weeping.
Right.
And I remember that bit, and then being like, oh my God, this is just the beginning of this. And it's that, and I couldn't, that ended the thing, I couldn't see the screen because I had cried so much. And I couldn't get out of the cinema.
God's sake.
And it was that weird thing of being like sitting. And I remember that someone, I think a colleague mentioned to me the day after. I remember sitting at my desk and being afraid of my desk.
Right. Yeah.
Like 11 a.m. Being afraid of my desk, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I was so terrified, and I definitely I had the lights on when I slept for about 9 months after watching that.
Right.
And I still think about it now as how, and I don't know why Paranormal Activity is so terrifying. And I find it really amusing that people weren't terrified by it. But it's, anyway, I'm rambling a bit. But I don't know what it is, why that was so specifically terrifying.
Do you know what? I think that is so brilliant that you are terrified, that you know that you're scared and that you feel the compulsion to put yourself through it as well. You know, and have gone back to watching more horror films. No, I don't think it is. I think it's like really like it's something you should be really proud of and excited about. And
but
why
it impacts other people. It's a bit like
go on.
I'm saying this, but he's got like dairy allergy and he still eats it, and it impacts other people.
I
right?
see.
So, and I think it's my dairy allergy.
Right.
I watch these things and then it's like, I'm sorry, I've got to put the lights on for the next year.
Okay, it's a selfish act.
Or I'm sorry, I can't. Yeah, and I can't go back in the house because it's dark. And you have to go first. Or like with watching Jaws, because I'd read every summer. I would from like really wait like 9. I would read sexy Jaws, because it is all really sexy, the book. And I would read Jaws and I would watch the film every summer. And then for the rest of the summer, I'd be like, I can't, like, I'd make my sister kind of get in and out of the pool before me.
Yeah.
I would, like, if we were swimming in the sea, it's only about the last 2 years I've been able to go into any ocean on my own. Like,
I think that's a reasonable fear to have, because you could realistically get bitten by a shark, couldn't you? Not that I want to, not that it's likely.
But it's like, I mean, and it's, but it does, it means, like I'll be like, I'm sorry, I simply can't go. You have to go further out at sea than me, because when Jaws inevitably comes, he'll get you first and buys me time to get back.
Sure, yeah, you'll be full.
Thinking about the sort of impact of that, yeah, we're full, and so yeah, I think it's my dairy allergy. I think it's selfish, because it really does mess me up.
Well, just on Jaws, I think that is. It's such an integral part of people's sort of film like life and film education, watching that film. And I think, it's obviously brilliantly made, brilliantly directed, but I watched it again recently with a group of people, because we were doing like a team building, make a film in a day thing, and the people running it showed us like this, the scene when the kidney boy gets eaten. And it's just that, like, you don't expect that level of type of visceral violence in, a film like that, I don't think. Even though you're going into it knowing it's about a killer shark, it's really like lures you into a bit of a false sense of security. And then when, the red of the blood and the kid's like open mouth, gaping mouth, flailing about, it's really sort of retina searing in a way. And you can't, it's one of those like iconic shots in cinema that you just, that comes to you occasionally. You're just walking down the road and you just think, fucking hell, that's horrible, isn't it? which is
it's underestimated. That you're right. That death is a forgotten one in the film. Everyone remembers all the other ones, but that is like it's like when you're a parent as well, particularly,
yes.
And the mother going up to the shore and screaming for Alex, and he's gone, and it's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But it's just you're right. It is an underestimated.
Yeah, I really have a problem with any films with not spooky kids, but any sort of violence towards kids in films. And I used to be like, I'll watch it all. No one's going to tell me what to watch, Mr. BBFC.
I used to be like,
yeah, if I want to watch Serbian film on repeat, I'm going to bloody do it.
Oh my god!
Do you know what I mean?
I've not even seen it. I just think I think about that film just from like. I think what my sister told me. I was like, I can't even. I was no way.
Yeah,
have you seen that?
I've seen it, and I went to the Rain Dance premiere of it, and they had to run it as a private screening because Westminster Council wouldn't let them play it, so they couldn't have a premiere. So they had to run it as a private screening, and it was like.
I was thinking the elevator pitch of that. So
the elevator pitch of Serbian film.
It's like I was like, imagine some green lighting that.
Yeah.
I just think I was like, how did that like?
I just don't trust the filmmaker's intentions with it either. He wrote this big thing about it being a satire of, the country and fascism and that, and I go, I'm not really sure. But that's kind of what's exciting in a way. It's like filmmakers who you don't. I mean, I always talk about Toby Hooper, and you watch a bit of Texas Chainsaw. And you've 10 minutes in, and that guy gets in the van, and you go, I don't trust this filmmaker anymore, and I don't trust this film, and it could go and it does go to the really dark places, and that's what I sort of find exciting. But I know that I guess the original question here was, I guess it is a roller coaster. Why do people get on roller coasters? To feel close to death in a sort of safe environment. I think that's what I kind of get out of it, and I do the same as you. It's like I find it relaxing. I find it sort of or being. I think I can't remember the last film that really did that. I took my sister and my sister's boyfriend to see Hereditary when that came out, and I ended it sweating, like clammy, really like I'd had a great time, but a really terrible time, and that's one of the films I really think about as just a modern horror classic. And then looking over to my sister, and she was like, "Yeah, I know too. That well, they're rubbish." And I was like, "How has this happened that we've both sat here and watched this film, and you've had that sort of like, nah, I know too that." So I don't know, horses and horses in it, whatever you're into. But,
yeah, right. I think Hellraiser is one of those. Because Hellraiser is the one that when you go into Blockbuster as a kid and you see Pinhead and you're like, and I used to be afraid of turning that corner because Pinhead would be looking at me. And I've watched that a lot, that film, and it's good. It's quite scary. It's the original book. That's is it Clive Barker book?
Yeah, Clive Barker. Yeah.
And it's and I think like that's a good one. I think that's a good entry level horror film to someone who doesn't really who thinks of it like horror films, because it's gross and it's frightening, and it deals with hell, and it deals with desire, and it deals with kind of
sexy horror,
and also it's sexy horror, but also it's kind of it's part of our kind of we grew up with it, that image of Pinhead.
Yeah. Anyway, we're straying from the host, but just to kind of no, that's not your fault. I'm getting too excited about horror films. So the kind of basis for this, it's the Fluke Man one, and it kicks off. We're on this boat, this Russian trawler, 2 miles off the coast of New Jersey. That's what the line says. So we know the episode's going to be set in New Jersey. All this water's coming out the toilet. There's a blockage. There's a lot of quite good Russian being spoken. I was surprised that it sounded actually legit. I don't know if the actors are...
Yeah, I didn't know if they were Russian actors.
Yeah, it was, a lot of Divine, Cacti and all that. So that was good. And so the toilet's overflowing. They need to go and sort out the septic tank. Some poor bloke gets sent down there, goes to the septic tank, it basically gets dragged in. And also I love the kind of... Russian male choir soundtrack they put on it in the background. So it's like this is really Russian now, everybody. So that's the kind of setup, and it's like, what's dragged him in there? Where's it come from? Where in Russia has it come from? And then we kind of cut to after the titles that. Well, obviously, a bit of background on this: the X-Files have been shut down. Mulder's sat eating a lot of Chinese food and his pumpkin seeds that he eats. And listening in on some conversation, but then he gets sent off on his way to investigate what could be a potential X-File. But yeah, I thought this was great, and I really like watching this season. It's because they've already established everything. It really goes off a lot of knots, and it's really like, right, we're straight in. We get some great Skinner action. It's the first appearance of Mr. X, who's a kind of deep throat informant replacement as well. But I mean, were you into it?
I did like it because I'd forgotten that there was the shutting down of X-Files thing, and the kind of, because you've got this, and also how that was kind of a good platform, but they've got this weird sort of intellectual romance between Mulder and Scully, and how it comes from her believing in him. And I forgot about how she believes, how she's the cynic, and he's a like all these podcasts, these ghost podcasts we listen to. There's always a kind of the sort of the daft believer, and then there's a kind of the cynic. And I sort of forgot about that dynamic between the two of them. I was a bit like, oh, Russians, yeah, here we go, and I was like, and then by it was there's something. There is something like about the way that when they go to the sewers and the guy gets pulled into the water, and he starts talking about how you've seen alligators down there and snakes, and I quite like the way it played into those American myths that we grew up with. Everyone had baby crocodiles, and then they flushed them down the loo, and then they grew, and that's what happened. and it was quite sort of a clever kind of way of like bringing that into it, because that's what you would think, you'd be like, it must be an alligator that had been pushed down the toilet.
I love the fact that the guy gets dragged into the sewer worker suggests to Mulder that it might be a python, and Mulder basically laughs in his face, like, get real, you know, as if a fluke man is not any more convincing than a chuffing python.
It's obviously a monster, obviously.
You exactly. Stupid idiot.
But it's like but also that it's the portaloo, the fact that he goes down into the portaloo, and that's when you go to a festival, it's 2 a.m. and you're going to loo. You do think about where the fluke man is down the loo, waiting to come up and grab you, because it was all these kind of myths, that there were animals in those loos that would come and bite you on the ass or whatever, or like, and it played into that in a really sort of clever way, and it was. I was interested in it. I was also trying to work out when it was set. I was like, is this post-Cold War? Where are we at with Russians right now?
Yeah, right.
Are they? How are relations? How are relations? How is the Iron Curtain holding up? Yeah. And it was interesting that, and I was thinking that as a trope, the kind of the sort of the Russians being kind of like, classic Russian behaviour, still being a thing. And then it was, if we can give the end of the episode away.
Yeah.
I was like, it's got to be Chernobyl, because that's the only thing it's Chernobyl. And then it's sad Fluke Man, poor Fluke Man, who's actually a nice man who got kind of warped by Chernobyl.
And very quickly dispatched again by Mulder. He's really killing off these cryptids one by one. He's like just out there murdering everything he loves. It's tragic in a way.
Yeah. But it's I mean, some of it, it's funny because the dialogue, you forget that it's like, hats off to them. There's a line where she says something like, she's like, he was born in a primordial soup of radioactive garbage, and you're like, imagine her reading that script, like preparing for a date around at the round table, just being like, really, have I got to say that?
Yeah,
I didn't realize it actually said things like that.
Yeah,
but it was gross, and I liked the gross.
I was as well. Yeah,
like,
I was really grossed out by it
coming out.
Yeah.
And it is like it's, and that thing, and it reminded me a bit of that. It's that thing where I don't know what you would call this in cinema, where with the parasitic element of it, where the parasite enters the person, then they then return to their home or their ship or wherever, like Prometheus, with this parasite inside them, and then it comes out, and by that point everybody's kind of trapped in this kind of with the parasite.
Yeah.
So like, parasites are really parasites. Actually, I have to say, it's not like I don't enjoy them. I find it's a horrifying idea.
Yeah, something living under the skin, and that's what Geiger talks about, isn't it? When he was designing the alien, he was like, that must just be so horrifying, looking down and seeing like a little worm that you can't get under your skin. But
inside. Yeah.
But no, it's another one where Scully gets it because it's rooted in some kind of science. It's not an alien. It's not totally outlandish. It's a parasite which you can understand, and I guess it's quite Cronenbergian actually, a lot of it, and you get a lot, like you say, a lot of good gore. Like she does a full-on autopsy, and then all this like diving around in the sewers, and then when you see him, the old Fluke man, he's quite a pathetic creature really, and I love the fact that what we're going to do with it, we'll just shove him in like a psychiatric hospital. I guess you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Poor old Fluke man.
Well, that's true. But it's the sad eyes, these sort of sad yellow. I mean, it's the same yellow as Tomb's eyes. These sort of sad yellow eyes.
Yeah.
And this horrible mouth, and you are like, is it a woman? I feel like it was a woman. I feel like it might have been a woman.
I think it's the sad eyes. Well, they point out there's no sex organs, don't they?
No sex, of course. That's it.
Yeah.
So what point did that happen in Chernobyl? So, like, what was kept and what was left?
I sort of get the Chernobyl thing, but it's like at some point as a maggot had to fuck a human or something. I didn't really get.
Yeah.
It's just
how it happened.
Yeah, like is it pushed forward evolution so a fluke worm is now human? Yeah. Anyway, it's best not to think too much about the ins and outs about it. I really did like how. When he does go down the toilet and he gets sucked back up into the sort of pipe, the waste pipe, which the guy who's driving the tanker is just smoking a fag, around that methane. I was like, fuck
that's
it.
normal. I'll just pat it along. It's
Yeah.
this huge blockage that's kind of like in my pipe. I was like, I'm sure that's not a person.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of moving around.
I know, just, yeah.
But also I was like, but also I think it's that thing of like, it sort of exposed some of these horrible jobs, like that job, particularly working in the sewers, like working on a Russian ship where you're like probably out at sea for months. It's like, have they not got it hard enough already that they're now going to get attacked by the flute man? Not only do they spend the whole day down dealing with fatbergs, but then now he's now going to get like a parasite inside him.
Yeah. Really grim. He's kind of I like how Mulder has basically got a nose for things as well, where he's like, tanker, it's in that tanker, off you go. I don't know how you could have possibly worked that out, Mulder, but we've got to progress the episode. But it's an interesting one, this episode, because it's written by Chris Carter, the showrunner, and it's one of the only ones he did that wasn't about aliens. So I think he did.
Right, yeah.
He was researching into Chernobyl, and I think it came off the back of his dog having worms, and he put the sort of two and two together, and off he went. Yeah.
Oh god.
It's really...
No, but it's a good, but like a lot of these things, it is the kind of it's intellectual aspect of the FBI versus the sort of paranormal, and there's a class thing as well going on, because it doesn't end up in Martha's Vineyard, which which is kind of like where the Obamas like holiday.
Yeah.
So you have the kind of like the sort of the out at sea with the Russians washed up in Martha's Vineyard where the rich people live.
Yes.
And it's sort of it's that sort of the sort of parallels going on there. I mean, I don't know if that's kind of how conscious that is, or maybe I just don't know much about geography anymore.
No, I think you're right, and I was reading. I didn't catch that in the episode, but I know in I think in the comics they did some comics, and that's where the Fluke Man ends up. So,
but it's like that thing of like with the doctors, like, we thought it was a bogus benefit claim. Because because he's a poor guy who works in sewers, that's what they do, isn't it? These poor people,
right?
They try to claim benefits, and it's like oh God's sake! I mean, look at the state of his back. It's just like you can't fake that.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Do you? Do you think you're going to watch some more X-Files after this? Are you going to return to it, or is it best left?
I might get. What I'll do. What I like to do is I like to dip into episodes. Like I like to find the band. I'll try and find there's some band episodes, aren't there? I think I have to. There's a parallel between what's going on in my life and what I watch. And when we just moved house, and when I was sort of pregnant and tired, and things were quite stressful, we started rewatching the OC.
Oh yeah.
And so, which is the first series holds, it sort of stands up. Actually, I have to say, the rest of it goes downhill after that. But
yeah. So
I think what I'll do is it'll probably be at a time when I'm feeling particularly happy and settled that I'll dip back into the X-Files. Yeah. But it was great to see the two of them back on the screen, and it's like, and they're sort of dynamic, and I forgot how much a big part of it is their will they won't they kind of element of it.
Well, I like you sent me before this chat some intel about how David Duchovny was a teaching assistant and used to just lounge around in a loose manner, and I think he definitely channels that.
He's a good-looking guy, and they're both very good-looking. It's funny, and they're both like still going. They're still kind of still doing stuff, but it's funny. It is. I mean, it's, I think it's thinking about what's going on. What was going on at the time. It is a funny, like, the clothes going back to fashion.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you about the fashion. Yeah,
it was a difficult time.
Yeah,
difficult time, I think. But that carrot, they call it carrot trousers. They're the ones that kind of billow at the hips and then kind of which do nothing for anybody. And it's that kind of I would call it the Max Mara Calvin Klein era, when everything was oversized and power shoulders and horrible shades of brown. It's a very difficult. I'm quite glad that we grew up when we did, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Are you what are you doing for the rest of the day? Are you just making sure that baby don't die?
Keep the baby alive, I guess.
Yeah.
Probably make some soup, feed the baby, and maybe finish the OC. Probably what I'll do.
Yeah.
I'll go for a run, actually.
Oh yes, do it. I keep meaning to. I might watch the OC because I'm obsessed with that Saturday Night Live sketch. The Shooting, aka
oh my god,
Dear Sister.
So good. That's why we watched it with the Imogen Heap song.
Yeah.
That's basically why we got into it, because we wanted to build up to that episode. And we kept all the kids up to watch it.
Incredible.
It's like a big cultural event.
Yeah,
it's good. Watch it, rewatch it. It's like it's of that time, of that period. This sort of size zero, that is sort of American, the paparazzi, Misha Barton, that era. It is a fascinating insight into that time.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. And also Seth is kind of like the guy that we all wanted to be / marry, who's kind of an asshole. Which he is. He's kind of a bad guy, and you thought at the time you kind of just thought he was great, but yeah.
Yeah, I keep, as you know, obsessed with Letterboxd, and I've figured out how you can add films to Letterboxd which aren't on there. So you have to go on a site called the Movie Database. It's not IMDb, it's another one. And I thought it is a crying shame that SNL sketch, as influential on modern day culture as it is not on Letterboxd. So I added it. And now it's on Letterboxd, and people are voting on it. Some people not into it. They're going, "Why is this on Letterboxd?" Other people really embracing it as has there been anything better ever? And then I got an email from the Movie Database the other day saying, "This is just a friendly note to say this film submission does not equal our guidelines, and we have removed it." The man telling me what is a cinema.
Wow.
So,
well, I'll tell you what's cinema, mate.
Yeah.
But I don't know why is it so funny?
Well, there's whole video essays about it. Yeah, if you go on YouTube, it's just something about the fact it doesn't make sense, and I guess I don't know. I can't even because I will watch it and rewatch it, and I'm always crying by the end of it about how brilliant it is. Yeah.
I think it's Shia LaBeouf. I think also because it's before he was cancelled, and I really like him as an actor, and I'm sort of sad that we'll never see him in anything ever again. But he is so funny.
Yeah,
it's something about it was that era of SNL anyway.
Yeah, they're all banging it. His guys are just doing the funniest thing, and then his little face. And the fact it's just shot on like a video. I think they just like needed to do another sketch, so someone gave him a video camera in the hotel room and says, "Get on with it." And I can't get my head around it, which is great.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. It's one of the things that we share. Me and my friends share the most is that video. Just out of the blue, just send it. It's time. Send it over. Imogen Heap goes. Her kids go to the same school as a friend of ours, and he's desperately trying to befriend Imogen Heap.
Oh my God.
In order to try and show her the video, and I was like, I don't know if she's going to like that video. Because it's a weird song. I also downloaded the song on Spotify to jog to, and I was like, this is a very weird song. The vocoder. Yeah. It's sort of a hide and seek, isn't it? It was the one that she must have made an absolute killing out of it.
Yeah, my friend Julia did the same, and she was like, God, it takes a long time to get to what you say, isn't it? It's like 2.5 minutes before she gets to that good bit.
What is it even called? Hide and seek, and what you say. That's what we call it, and what you say.
Yeah, exactly. Sort it out.
I tell you why I think it works is because it's in the actual thing, in the actual episode. When he gets shot, the speed at which he turns around is not the speed at which you would turn around if you'd just been shot. And I think that's probably why they decided to make it the slow-mo. Yeah, the brother shifts.
Yeah, I'm going to rewatch it again after this. Believe Me is written and edited by me, Chris Boyd, with production support from Steve Marshall. The music is by Johnny Boyle. And our logo is by Russ Brown. If you like the show, please do hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you out there next time.